Let's discuss getting a second opinion on an appraisal, like an appraisal review, and possibly getting a second appraisal. So let me just make sure this is very, very clear out of the gate. A second appraisal is rare. It's not a thing that happens very often. There are examples of when that happens, and I'll cover that in a minute. But let's talk about appraisal reviews. An appraisal review can be common for two different reasons. So first of all, what is the appraisal and the appraisal review? What's that process look like? So an appraisal is a third-party person, or an appraiser is a third-party person that goes out and evaluates a home and says, based on other homes like it within the same area with the same conditions, all that thing, they're going to say, here's the value, the market value of the home. They're not necessarily saying what somebody would pay for the home. They're just saying, hey, based on these other 5 homes in the area, these are what they've sold for, all within the last 6 months, all within 1 mile radius, all of them similar size. Certainly there can be exceptions to those things, but that's ultimately what appraisal does. So if an appraisal review is needed, it's needed for one of two reasons. One, when they submit the value, when they submit all this stuff for a lot of the like Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, it goes through an automated process where they submit their work and a machine kind of looks at it and says, man, it seems kind of funky for what their machines would have come up with. It's an automated value machine, I think is what they call it, an AVM. And they say, hey, that's funky. And so they'll assess a score. Well, if the score is like too far out of the bounds, an appraisal review might be needed where maybe the original appraiser needs to give extra comps or an extra explanation. Maybe it gets elevated or escalated to internal things where maybe like an in-house appraiser just validates like, yeah, that guy was right. It's just a funky neighborhood or maybe a glitch in the matrix, who knows? So those appraisal reviews will often happen without a home buyer even knowing. They are even for refinancing without the homeowner even knowing. So those appraisal reviews can happen. Another type of review is when the home buyer doesn't like it because maybe the home value came in less than what they were hoping, needing, or wanting. So in that instance, we got to go do our homework, right? Us, the lender, the realtor, if they're involved, if there is a home builder, the home builder person that just says, hey, it came in low. And understand, we're not asking for a higher value. We're just asking to make sure it's accurate. There's a big difference. I'm not saying because it came in low, it's wrong. I'm just saying like, hey, is this accurate? Because if the home buyer can, or the homeowner can say, if it's a refinance, hey, the neighbors across the street sold their home off the market, right? If we can get that information and that can help them, that's wonderful because the appraiser may not have known about that. For new home sales, a lot of times the communities will sell homes that are not an MLS, which means the appraiser doesn't have access to that information. So you can ask for an appraisal review once you give the appraiser new information and, hey, these are better comps than what you used, or here's this and that. So that's the appraisal review process. It can take a couple of days because you got to get your information together. You got to send it back to them, have it get figured out. And ultimately, their job is to figure out if what they gave you is an actual accurate valuation. So again, they might say, hey, the value stands. They might say, hey, guess what? It's going to increase because of these new things, whatever it may be. So that's the appraisal review process, whether it's done internally, externally, to be determined. Now let's talk about when a second appraisal is required. So some programs, Jumbo, for example, a lot of lenders are going to say if somebody's borrowing over $1.5 million, $1.5 million loan amount or more, a lot of lenders might say, man, we just need 2 of them out of the gate. Like, just give me 2 because it's just such a bigger loan amount, more risk because there's not, it's not a huge market for those type of homes. I mean, it's a small percentage of the number of homes out there in America. So they may require 2 appraisals, and some of them might say, hey, if it's 2 million or more, they get 2. But some just say out of the gate, yep, 2 are required. So now let's go to another instance like FHA, and their guidelines can change. But it used to be, this is long ago, but if a house was being flipped and a home buyer was buying it using FHA financing, I think it was like within 90 days, FHA wanted 2 appraisals just to make sure something funny wasn't going on. That's not quite so common now because regulations and all these other different compliance things have come into play where that's not quite so common. But that could be something where when a flip happens, the second appraiser is needed or wanted just to go in to make sure that they validated that the first one's not missing something because it's such a big increase in value in such a short amount of time. That is certainly something that they can have to where they just wanted kind of a second look. Now let's go to if you switch lenders, right? So for some reason, you go somewhere, you get an appraisal done, and now you come to the mortgage market team because they couldn't figure it out, and we're so great, we do. It's good for us. You are allowed to get a second appraisal for like conventional financing. However, for like VA or FHA, if you're still buying the exact same house and the appraisal's done, you're not going to get a second appraisal. It's going to be because those appraisals stay with those houses for a period of time. So if you switch lenders, it doesn't always mean you get a brand new look at a brand new appraisal. So keep that in mind. However, you can get a second appraisal if, this is very rare, very, very rare, if you can validate that the first appraiser just basically is incompetent. If you got so much data, so many facts that just said, man, you're a goofball, and I can't get the person to give me an accurate, again, not saying higher value, an accurate appraisal. On rare exceptions, you might be able to say, okay, let's get another appraisal. But then the company, the lender is going to have to do a ton of paperwork to make sure like they're just proving that we're not getting a second appraisal just because we want to. We're doing it because we don't feel like we have the right information. So it's super, super rare to get a second one when it's not a jumbo. I mean, jumbos needs two a lot of times out of the gate. FHA with flips can need two. Obviously, if you're switching lenders, you'll get a second one if you want a second one or need a second one. But ultimately, just to get a second one because you want to, because the value is low, not a thing. So hopefully that gives you some understanding about the review. Hopefully it gives you some understanding about when you need a second one, when you're allowed to get a second one. Obviously, reach out to us. We're certainly going to keep you posted, at least the mortgage market team will, to tell you what to do, what to expect. And if you have any questions, you're not working with us, you probably should be, but that's okay. If you're too far in and you're watching this, call us. We'll be happy to look at something and give you our opinion as well, and help you out any way we can. So as always, thanks for watching. Feel free to forward, subscribe, all that stuff. But most importantly, when you think mortgage, think Mark.